Zettel für die lange Weg. 2 Flaschen Whisky für die Zeit. Und ich date gern habe, du bist dabei. Maria geht, fahrt mal weg, ist weit. Wann ich geh, ich werd dir fehlen, wann ich geh. Du sehst nicht, was ich mach, du sehst nicht, wie ich lach. Ich werd dir fehlen, du watsch sehen. Hab kriegt mein Zettel für den langen Weg. Du scheinst da, als mir finden kann. Es hat Maria und Dale ganz wunderbar. Hass ich dir den weißen Dank. Wann ich geh, ich werd dir fehlen, wann ich geh. Du sehst nicht, was ich mach, du sehst nicht, wie ich lach. Ich werd dir fehlen, du watsch sehen. Well, hello, liebe Leute. Doug is wieder back, as we say in Pennsylvania Dutch. Wir sind wieder zurück. It's another month. We are now in almost more than halfway through August. Can you believe it? And we are back at it with another edition of PA Dutch Live. And boy, do we have a doozy of a show for you guys tonight. But as always, if you're watching on the YouTube channel, if you're watching on the Facebook, let me know where you're tuning in from. I always love to find out where everyone is, where we're watching, and I'll give you guys shout outs when we get, as you guys post some comments. I appreciate it. You know the format if you've watched the show before, but if you're brand new, welcome. Every month, I bring the best Pennsylvania Dutch content that I can to anybody that wants to watch it. And we usually follow the same format. We start the show, talk a little bit about what's coming up, what events might be going on that you could attend. And we look forward to, having opportunities like that for us as of course, right now things are a little questionable with COVID and everything going on, but we're hoping that things will improve. Let's just say that. I'm going to try and stay positive on that comment. We got some people joining us. We got Don joining us from Midlothian, Virginia. Don, I think you were with us last month. Thanks for joining us again. Great to have you with us. Let me show everybody a little bit of rundown of what you can expect tonight, bring you up to date on some news in the Pennsylvania Dutch country, and then we will get to our guest for sure. It's going to be a great one. But first, I mentioned this last month if you were here, but if you weren't here, there are opportunities for you to learn Pennsylvania Dutch. If you've always wanted to learn, here are some opportunities if you live in the right areas. First off, we got Dave and Jean Adams, good friends of mine, good friends of the Pennsylvania Dutch community. If you are in the greater Orfield area, that's Lehigh County, their class will be starting very soon on the 9th of September from 7 to 8 p.m. at the Jordan Lutheran Church. That's on Snowdrift Road. For more information, it's $15 flat fee. That gets you the full 13 weeks plus all the materials. You can't beat that price. For more information, I have Dave's email address there, dhadam@rcn.com, and his phone number there if you want to call, 610-395-4282. They are great people. They've been doing this class now for years. Every year, the class seems to get larger and larger because they're so enjoyable to learn from. So check them out if you're in that area. Another opportunity for you, if you live in the Lebanon area, there will be a Pennsylvania Dutch class taught by another really good friend of mine, Alice Spade. She will be teaching her class at historic Schaefferstown, which is in the town of Schaefferstown in Lebanon County there. Her class will be Monday afternoons from 1 to 3 p.m. It'll be running for 10 weeks straight, starting on the 13th of September. It's $50. That's the cost for the entire class. It's a one-time fee. And if you would like more information about that class, give Alice Oscom a call there at 717-866-5242. So 2 great opportunities for you. If you're in the Lehigh County area, you can go learn Pennsylvania Dutch with Dave and Jean Adams. And if you're in the Lebanon County area, you can go and learn from Alice Spade. Both would be enjoyable classes that you would get a lot out of for sure. Let's talk about some upcoming events in Pennsylvania Dutch country this weekend. Not much time for this one to plan, but on Saturday, this Saturday, is the Pennsylvania German Farm Festival at the historic Dreibelbis Farm, and that is in one of my favorite places in the world, Virginville, Berks County, Pennsylvania, running from 10 to 4, rain or shine. I didn't check the weather. I don't know what's going to be like this weekend, but if you can see, there is tons and tons of stuff to see at this event. There'll be life on the farm. You'll be able to see how the Pennsylvania Dutch lived in the 1800s. And there will also be lectures going on, a Civil War first defenders, Native American storytelling. My good friend, our good friend, Keith Brinsenhoff will be doing music that day at 1 o'clock. And the Druckenmillers, it's a bluegrass group. They'll be playing it too. Great opportunity. Free to get in. You do have to pay $3 to park. But what a great opportunity if you're looking for something to do this coming Saturday. Also, we're in the month of September looking ahead. The 12th of September, which is a Sunday afternoon, will be the 8th annual Pennsylvania German Church Service, or as we say in Pennsylvania Dutch, Pennsylvanisch Deutsch Gottesdienst, and that'll be at the historic Wenger Meeting House in Jonestown, Pennsylvania. That's free. The church will open up at 2 p.m., or the meeting house opens up at 2 p.m. with the service starting at 2:30. I have had the pleasure of giving the sermon at these in the past. It's a wonderful location, a wonderful event. This year's speaker will be Caleb Franks, who will be giving the message that day. For more information, they do have a page on Facebook, the Wenger Meeting House. You can find them on Facebook and learn more. Great opportunity for you to do something on that Sunday afternoon. Later on in September, we got the Great Ole Fair. Dutchy the Cow says, now you got to come down to the Ole Fair. So make sure you're there September 16th, 17th, and 18th at the Ole Fire Company Fairgrounds. Great food, great exhibits, get to see the animals. You want to be there. I'm telling you, we got tons of stuff coming up in Pennsylvania Dutch Country. I'm really happy to be able to bring you all these events. If you're looking for something else to do, Saturday and Sunday, the 18th and 19th of September, we referenced historic Schaeferstown before, where Alice Spade will be teaching her class. This will be their annual harvest fair at the historic Alexander Schaefer Farm. $5 to get in on both days. And as you can see, there's a lot of stuff going on. There'll be 18th and 19th century crafters, farm demonstrations, bake oven cooking, Pennsylvania German food. That's the best part to go right there. Cider pressing, apple butter making. My goodness. Plus, you can tour the house and the gardens. The blacksmith shop will be open. And they're going to have live music as well. The hymn sing on Sunday, and the fabulous Keystone Band will be playing 2 to 4. Check out the historic Schaeferstown Annual Harvest Fair on the 18th and 19th of September. I'm not done. We got more. At the end of September, Heimatfest Light this year will be taking place at the Pennsylvania German Cultural Heritage Center at Kutztown University. I've been announcing this the last couple months, but just want to make sure that you have that on your calendar. For more information, of course, you can check out their website. They also have a very active presence on social media. Check them out on Facebook as well to learn more information about Heimatfest Light this year on the 25th of September. Another really awesome opportunity, if you really want to get a great Pennsylvania Dutch experience, is the annual West Berks County Versammling. Now, Versammling is the Pennsylvania Dutch word for gathering or get together. It'll be taking place at Bellarmine's Church Fellowship Hall. That is in Mooresville, Pennsylvania, actually 1 mile from where I grew up. And it'll be an afternoon of everything Pennsylvania Dutch. Good food, good entertainment. The entertainment will be the Miller Brothers. They're hilarious. They're great musicians. And the speaker will be the Reverend Richard Miller, another good friend of mine and of the Pennsylvania Dutch community. If you'd like more information, you do have to get tickets. There's a phone number there, 488-1400. That's John Roush. He's a good old Pennsylvania Dutchman. He'll get you those tickets. I don't know the cost. You'll have to call him to get the cost for the West Berks County Versammling. Definitely something to check out. As I mentioned before, also in the month of October, looking ahead, the Kutztown Folk Festival, since they weren't able to have their festival this year in July, has a slate full of fall events that are going to be taking place in October in Kutztown. Here are just 3 things that are going on. There's tons more information on their website, so check out kutztownfestival.com, I believe, or .org. Just Google search Kutztown Folk Festival and it'll come up. But they are really planning some great events for the month of October for you to get all involved in Pennsylvania Dutch stuff. We're going to talk here in a little bit with the author of this book, Amy Strauss, Pennsylvania Scrapple, a Delectable History. But let's, before we do that, I want to give a shout out to some people that are watching here. We got David, a good friend of the show, joining us from Lehigh County. We got Elizabethtown with Kathy in Lancaster County joining us. We're going way down south. Jeff is joining us from Wilson, North Carolina. Welcome, Jeff. David, Barbara, San Diego, I bet you it is beautiful in San Diego. We are currently sitting in the remnants of tropical depression or Hurricane Fred, and it is pouring outside with humidity at like 145%. So, Dave, I bet the weather is a little bit better where you are. Germansville, Pennsylvania. Hello, Sheila. Thanks for joining us. We got Mike joining us from Ewing, New Jersey. He's a foreigner joining us from across the Delaware. That's all right. Welcome. Hey, Josh Miller will be joining the Schaeferstown class. Glad that you're taking that. I don't know if you know Alice or not, Josh, but Alice is top notch in my book. Gary is joining us from Egypt, or as the Dutchmen from our area say, Egwite. That's pretty good. Yes, and Brigitte is joining us from Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love. Well, everyone joining us, thanks so much. Enough of me talking to you. It's time to bring in someone that really knows their stuff, and I'm so excited to have Amy.
Oh, hi. How are you?
Hi, Amy. It's so great to have you. Welcome to PA Dutch Live.
Thank you so much for having me. And as you can see, I prepared my background like I promised you. I have a Scrapple drawing and also an awesome contemporary hex sign.
Shouldn't everybody have a Scrapple drawing somewhere in their house on display?
Absolutely. I got to be on brand, you know?
We are on brand. Well, Amy, I invited you on to the show because a couple of years ago you authored a book called Pennsylvania Scrapple, A Delectable History. We want to definitely talk about that book, but before we talk about the book, tell the viewers a little bit about yourself. Where did you grow up? What is your connection to Pennsylvania Dutch? And then we'll go from there.
Yes. So I like to say that I am 110% Pennsylvania Dutch. Both of my parents, born and raised Pennsylvania Dutch members. So I love the show. I am definitely excited to be a part of it. And I did grow up in Berks County. So currently I live in Philadelphia, in South Philadelphia, but I grew up in Berks County in Boyertown, Pennsylvania. So much of my life, I have celebrated all things Pennsylvania Dutch. I can say a little fun facts is that I did things like my first job, one of my first jobs, I worked at an apple butter factory. Shout out to Bauman's Apple Butter, and did apple pressing. So that's in Sassmansville, Pennsylvania. And I also grew up where I ate a lot of pig stomach. Every Fat Tuesday, I make Fosnuts for all of my Strauss family. Hello to my Strausses. And, shoe fly pie, funny cake. I can just go on forever, right? So
if you do, I just keep getting hungrier and hungrier as you're mentioning all these foods that are so near and dear to my heart and stomach as well.
Yeah, so I hope everybody tuning in finds that I have credibility because I name dropped a lot of things just there.
Yeah, plus your last name alone is credibility. Strauss, good old Pennsylvania Dutch last name. Mm-hmm. One question for you, since you said both sides of your family were Pennsylvania Dutch or are Pennsylvania Dutch, and I'm in the same boat. Did you grow up hearing the language that was still spoken by grandparents, or had your family stopped using the language?
I can say that yes, my grandparents did speak the language, and my dad does speak the language as well. He actually wanted to brush up a little bit in the last coming year, so he was taking classes. I can say that I'm going to lose some of my credibility card. I cannot speak it, but I've always wanted to, and there are certain things that, like slang, that my mother would say. I'm not really sure if it was ever Pennsylvania Dutch, but she would always call me a nix nuts. And
that's Pennsylvania Dutch.
Yeah, so there's things that are part of my vernacular that I always heard, but I can't say that. I mean, I grew up with it. I've been a part of it. I used to dress up and go to the Gashahoppen Folk Festival and stuff like that. But I feel like maybe in, a couple years, or maybe it should have been my COVID activity, I should be brushing up on the language.
Hey, I appreciate your honesty in that and feeling like, I lose a little bit of credibility for not speaking the language. But I want to make everybody know, I mean, all of you that watch the show and know my work know that, the language is a big thing that I push. However, I would not being able to speak it does not make you not Pennsylvania Dutch. I always like to remind people it's not our fault that a generation at some point before you were born or before any of us were born decided this is something we're not going to pass on. The work that you're doing is continuing another side of the Pennsylvania Dutch culture. It's not just the language, it's our history, it's our food ways, which we're going to talk about tonight. It's our art, it's our traditions. I mean, those are all things that are all part of being Pennsylvania Dutch. And if you can't speak the language, that's okay. It's always something you can try and learn a little bit here and there. And I always challenge people to do that. But I don't want people to beat themselves up and say, I'm not as Pennsylvania Dutch as I should be because I can't speak the language. Well, I mean, don't be so hard on anybody out there that's thinking about these things. But a great story. Yeah, sure. Boyertown girl, Berks County girl. This is wonderful. So let's talk about the whole reason I found you was because of the book that you wrote, Pennsylvania Scrapple, A Delectable History. Where did this idea come from? I mean, it's not just anybody's going to sit down and say, A, I'm going to write a book. B, I'm going to write a book about something that a lot of people are disgusted by or are turned off by or don't even know what it is. They just know it's this grayish meat that is unique to Pennsylvania Dutch country. So tell us that story a little bit, how you came to this project. Oops.
That it is quite the story. I always had a lot of passion, as you maybe can tell about my heritage. And so as I graduated from college, I graduated with a journalism and communications degree. So I did write for a lot of local newspapers and wrote I really, ever since the day I graduated college, wrote about food. Like my entire career, I even currently work at Campbell's Soup. So my entire career of life has been about food. And so anytime that I would have the ability to write an editorial about, my upbringing and the food of my upbringing, I would take that chance. So there are a lot of articles out there where I wrote about Fosnuts, I wrote about Scrapple and things like that. And it just so happened that every National Scrapple Day, I would, talk about Scrapple. So in short, the power of social media, which sounds like a crazy thing, but the power of social media did me good. And I was actually approached via Twitter in 2016 to reach out to my publishing company, Arcadia Publishing, and we have an idea for you. And when they reached out to me on Twitter via a tweet, 140 character tweet, they had said, I think you're the girl to write the Scrapple book. And I almost thought it was a joke because like someone approaching you and saying, you should write a whole book about Scrapple. Like what? You're already setting yourself up for scrutiny because it's one of the most polarizing foods, right? So that whatever you do and whatever you write, you're going to get some hate mail. You're going to get people telling you they hate that food. And also, what is there to really, can you write a whole book on Scrapple? Like what things can you write about for, I think my book is something like 200 pages. Like what can you write about Scrapple? So all this to say, I embrace the opportunity. I always say yes. And I recall calling my dad to tell him, I think I'm going to write this Scrapple book. And I've never heard him be more prouder. His true Pennsylvania Dutch girl, which I'm going to name drop his bluegrass band because he wrote a song called Pennsylvania Dutch Girl. I like to think it was about me, but really it's about my mom. And his band, Crow Hill, does perform that song. So
I know that song, Amy. I've heard that song. I had no idea that was your dad, though.
Yes,
yes, absolutely. Great shout out to Crow. Yes, great.
Yes. So in short, it's really coming full circle, right? But so I embraced the opportunity and I decided that when I approached writing a book about Scrapple, I would leave no stone left unturned. So I also knew that going into the book, while it is 100% nonfiction, it's all about the history of Scrapple and how it came to be, but also I had fun with it, right? Because you can't read a book about Scrapple and not have fun with it. So I did really get deep into I've uncovered some really cool things that from the late 1800s that I had no idea was associated with Scrapple. So I have no regrets. And I still, to this day, while I released the book around 2017, I still to this day receive emails maybe once a week, people reaching out to me to tell me they love Scrapple or they hate it, or they want to tell me the best way to prepare it, or they want to tell me the best condiment to put on it. So it's been a journey.
I'm sure it has. Hey, look who's giving us a shout. I gotta say, our good friend Rachel. Hi, Doug and Amy. Well, hello, Rachel. I know that you're down there in Boyertown watching us. And we got some people from Keith is in Carbon County and South Carolina, North Augusta. Jerry, welcome. Got the Phillies logo
Jerry.
there.
I know Jerry.
Okay.
Hi. Thank you for tuning in.
And we have someone joining us from across the pond in Germany. Welcome, Neo. Thanks for coming, staying up late and watching with us. You told us about your, this how this came about. So what would you like to share with our audience about some of the stuff that you learned? If you had, you're standing waiting for the bus or something and somebody's next to you and you're like, let me talk to you a little bit about Scrapple. What would you like to share with our audience a little bit?
Ooh, okay. So where do I begin? So I always like to start with some fun facts. So one of my favorite fun facts this is one of the things that I uncovered when I was really digging and researching the book, is that in 1872, in the New York Times, for 2 weeks straight, the letter to the editor's section was overtaken by people writing in about Scrapple, which I think is a really fun fact. So this was before, things became viral, but this was basically viral in print. And so essentially, a gentleman, he had moved away from the Philadelphia area. He had moved up to Manhattan, and he could not, for the life of him, find Scrapple anywhere. So he had wrote into the paper to say if anybody else, and he named himself Epicure. And so he said, if anybody would like to know, I am in Manhattan right now, and I cannot find the most delicious breakfast meat. And now my wife and I are resulted to eating pork chops for breakfast, which feels a little extreme. But anyway, so he wrote this in and said, if anybody has an interest in learning more about this delicious meat that I cannot seem to find in New York, please write in and tell me. So there was so many inquiries wondering, what is this meat he's talking about? Why is it you can eat it in the morning and be filled all day? What is it? So he said, my wife would be happy to write in her recipe because she did a lot of research. She couldn't find it out there. So they were resulting into creating it themselves. So she wrote into the New York Times, and she called herself the Good Lady. And from there, she shared the recipe, which of course started with a hog's head. So she encouraged everybody to get a hog's head and start and poke out the eyes and start making their own version of Scrapple. What was a funny thing that happened next was that many folks wrote in and they talked about, there was one gentleman who called himself the physician, telling people maybe you shouldn't eat Scrapple every day for breakfast. And then there was another, I can't recall if it was a female or a male, but they called themselves Good Liver, basically telling folks to make a variation of Scrapple that didn't have any pork products in it. I wouldn't say that was Scrapple, but it was really had a lot of character. And I think that just shows that even in the late 1800s, Scrapple had a very polarizing nature to it, and also had the ability to take over, right? Yeah. So I found that
in your research, what was the earliest reference to Scrapple?
Yeah, so I saw in print.
It was on internet. Oh, sorry. Yeah, in print.
Yes, in print, it was as early as I could date back. It was mid 1800s, and it essentially in those first mentions called it Philadelphia Scrapple. And the story associated with that is that a lot of farmers who lived in the Philadelphia suburbs, because Philadelphia was very the hotbed for, obviously we know this, but was the hotbed for Scrapple. So as late as the late 1600s was when we first started seeing, the German settlers coming to the Germantown area of Philadelphia. And so from there, people like to presume, and it is really the history of it, that when the Germans came to America and to the Germantown area of Pennsylvania, they brought their German sausage making skills with them. And then when they were confronted with the very prosperous corn crop that the Native Americans had really, it was so prosperous and they were sharing it with them, they decided to meld the two things together. So it was really a marriage of their location. So really taking from what the Germans knew and then being in this new territory, finding new ways to really, sustain themselves through like cold winters. Yeah. So, when you come to a new region, you have to still, you're developing your crops. They really needed to make use of everything they had. So whether it's their animals, really trying to prolong the animals that they had raised into something that could sustain their family for months and months and months. So when you think about, it was definitely something that really gained traction. And then in print by the mid 1800s is when you really start to see people talking about it. But I love that in addition to calling it Philadelphia Scrapple, people also called Philadelphia Scrapple Paradise. And so what I found interesting was the farmers would pack up all their scrapple and then they would travel to the area of Philadelphia and to the city and really sell all these bricks of scrapple to people in the city. And then from there, the farmers kind of, they started to really not necessarily need to go to a place like Reading Terminal Market, and they could really pop up with country butchers. That's really where country butchers came to be. And that's where they went from the city and then it spilled out all over the region. So really all over the Philadelphia region. And then if you want to get into Delaware, well, if anybody realizes this, there is a war between who owns Scrapple. Is it Delaware or Philadelphia? I don't know.
I never heard of that before.
Yes, there is.
What's Delaware's, what's their argument that they can claim it?
Well, I can say that there's some interesting fun facts about Delaware. So they have one of the biggest Scrabble producers, Rappa, right in their home turf. And what's interesting is when I first released my book, I went to promote it in Delaware. And I can tell you that Delawareans, I don't know if that's a true word, but they did not want to see a book with Pennsylvania Scrapple on it. They wanted to say Delaware Scrapple. And a really interesting fun fact is that Haverset, which is a huge brand in the Philadelphia area for Scrapple, so it always was a war between Haverset and Rappa, which one is like the big kingpin. Fun fact, they're both produced now in the same factory in Delaware. So things have really come along, but all the same, what I can say is that, people being passionate about a food and wanting to feel ownership about it, that's what keeps it alive. And
you're right.
And I do think that like people, one Philadelphia historian, Kenneth Finkel, who I really love this line he wrote. So if it's okay if I read it to you, but
absolutely. Oh yeah.
Yeah, so he had wrote that Scrapple is a metaphor for Philadelphia. It was invented here, going back into the late 1600s to the very beginning of the city. And it hasn't changed. It still has the same ingredients today as it had 300 years ago. And if you think about that, like what things, like what edibles do you eat and feel they usually progress with time as food trends come to play? And I can say that there is the argument about Scrapple. Some people put in more of the nasty bits, as one would call it, into their recipe rather than others. But if you look at any Scrapple, package in the store, you can pick that up and read that. And it's all real food. It's all natural ingredients. It mostly will say, different parts of the pig, but also then a flour and maybe seasonings, buckwheat, etc., depending on the producer. but all to say that it is very natural, and there's why mess with a good thing, right?
Yeah, I had never heard that about Delaware, but I mean, I think for us Pennsylvania Dutch, I mean, it is one of the foods that is truly unique for us. I mean, we invented it, and
Mhm.
like you said, we continue to make it, and it hasn't changed at all, really, when you think
Yeah.
about it. Like you said, there's only one. You can't really change that recipe all that much, I guess. I don't know, but I mean, it also speaks. The thing about Scrapple that I always tell people too is that it's a prime example of a food to use to highlight our culture and our history, because A, we were an agrarian people. B, we were self-sufficient and self-sustaining. So,
Mhm.
we used snout to tail. That
Yep.
before that was, farm to table, all these terms that
Yep.
we throw around now today, that has been in our cultural DNA since time immemorial. And Scrapple is a prime example. You were using everything you could, and when
Mhm.
you made it usually whenever you were butchering. But then you had something that could survive, like you mentioned, into the winter.
Mhm.
And it's truly, it's a food that I know not everybody loves, and some
Yep.
people are afraid of it, and I understand that. But at the same time,
Mhm.
it's one that, well, I love it, but it's one that I take a lot of pride in for being a part of us as a culture
Mhm.
and as a people in our foodways.
Like,
So let's get to. I have a question that someone asked here, and this is going to be
oh
the one
boy.
that I know brings a lot of arguments among people. Chris wants to know, what
Oh.
do you put on Scrapple? Now, those of you that know me know that when I do live shows, not online, but actually like out live performing with my friend Chris, almost every show we do, we bring this topic up because we love to hear the audience. And I'll tell you, we've done shows where they get pretty loud and passionate about what is the right thing to put on Scrapple. So you're the expert. You wrote the book. What do you say to someone that asks that question?
You know, I was raised Pennsylvania Dutch, and I went to a Mennonite church. So I am a I embrace everybody. So my theory is you put on whatever the hell you want, but at the same time, I can tell you what I like to put on. So I can say that I think the best combination is when you have Scrapple and you have, and this is really going to show my true colors, dippy eggs or over easy, any
Right.
runny yolk, and you have that egg and you let that yolk be the quote unquote dressing to the Scrapple. And I think that's just a beautiful thing. Like, I don't need any condiments, but if I were to choose, I would probably go ketchup, but I would probably go Berks County ketchup that I love dearly and is a little bit different than Heinz. So I just gotta, and it's actually called Berks County ketchup. I apologize, I can't recall the producer off the top of my head, but it's my favorite thing. And I can say that in all the things I spoke, people love King syrup. They love maple syrup. They love grape jelly. They love yellow mustard. They love stone ground mustard. They love Dijon mustard.
Apple butter.
Of apple butter, molasses. Yes. So all of these things, I think there is a time and place for them all. But I think sometimes you just need to have that true, pure bite before you get crazy.
I agree. I love how diplomatic you were. There's no right answer, but this is what I like, and
Yeah,
that's
this is
usually. I
what
mean, I'm a when the opportunity for dippy egg, of course, that is rich and decadent, but so simple too. That's another thing I
Mhm.
love about it. But I am a ketchup boy myself,
Mhm.
similar to you. But I'm a divided household. My wife is a
Oh.
syrup person, so we always have both
Oh.
condiments on the table when we have Scrapple in the morning.
Love it.
And we have two children, and they have divided themselves as well. One likes ketchup and one likes syrup. So I tried to win them both over to my team, but it didn't work.
Love it. Love it.
We have another question from Kathy. Kathy wants to know, is Panhaus the same as Scrapple or different? Also pudding. So Panhaus is the Pennsylvania Dutch word for Scrapple. So if you hear somebody say, I'm making Panhaus, that is Scrapple. Now pudding, There are, and Amy, you can jump in here, but if you go to a true Pennsylvania Dutch butcher shop, and I'll give a shout out to, let's say, Dietrich's in Crumbsville, Pennsylvania, right off I-78, there are multiple types of meat puddings out there. There are ones that are pork based. There are ones that are beef based. Sometimes they're known as crock puddings, or in the case of Scrapple, most people are used to eating it after it's solidified in the pan, sliced, and then fried or seared. But you can eat it fresh, and then it is more like a pudding consistency when it comes right out of the iron kettle, if you're making an iron kettle, or before it solidifies. So is it a pudding? Well, at one point in its chemical makeup, it is like a pudding, but you have to be careful, because there are multiple types of meat puddings out there in the Pennsylvania Dutch vernacular. But panhaus is the Pennsylvania Dutch word for Scrapple. Great question, Kathy. Did you want to add anything to that, Amy?
I mean, I think you did a terrific job explaining that, so I have nothing to add, but I would say what's really interesting in a lot of, if you just look back at any article, maybe in the last 100 years about Scrapple, there is a ton that really talk about how could something be good that has the word crap in it, right? Or scrap. But a lot of people talked about how, referring it to, panhas, or even just, some people have even said it's similar to a pate with a crispy one, and then you take the pate and then you fry it. But if you think about that, it has an air of elegance.
Oh, yes, it does.
It's almost as if, what if Scrabble just would have got a different name? Would it be as polarizing, right?
Right.
So it's funny, there's a lot of commentary around that what's in a name, the name does not help it, okay? The name does not help it, but it does feel, I mean, the German word, the Pennsylvania, panhas, it just sounds better, so that's just my tangent.
Jerry says, and I've heard this from other people, especially people that don't live in the Pennsylvania Dutch region anymore, and they come to visit family or whatever, and they leave. They fill the shopping cart with things that they want, whether it's good chips or Scrapple. But Jerry says, I bought a block of Scrapple when I was in Boyertown in July, because I can't easily find it here in the South. Froze it and am eating it sparingly.
Love it. Love
it. Jerry, you are absolutely right. I have been there. I know exactly what you're talking about. There's certain things that I can only get certain places, and you have to piece it out, so to speak, so that you can stretch it as far as possible. Sue,
I did hear that similar story too, where I would say that a lot of businesses, especially those in the Reading Terminal Market, they do killer shipping. They have a whole system. They ship it all over the world. They ship it to Hawaii and beyond. So I like to think that, and there's a story, but I'll table it till we get the next question.
Oh, okay. Sue wants to know, I would like to know, Scrapple has cornmeal in it. So was it less firm before the cornmeal was introduced? Was it called puddings before it had the corn in it? Amy?
Yeah, and I would say that, they're kind of what Doug had mentioned. They're pudding and Scrapple, two different things. The origin of Scrapple and how it came to be, and the way that it was produced early on, was the fact that, folks were putting it in bread-like pans and then putting a layer of lard over top, and then putting it in their root cellar to hold it over through winter. So, I mean, I can't necessarily say if they didn't put it in their root cellar to, congeal it to make it the form that you think of as Scrapple, that it could have been more like a pudding. But I think that even, I do think that it could very well be similar to a pudding if you didn't follow those steps. But again, it was a meat built to prolong you through winter. And so that's why it is in its true form, thicker, heartier in the log form. So it's not really ever approached as a pudding. But I know when you're eating and you take, I don't know if you guys on this have ever made Scrapple, but you got to eat it when it's in its quote unquote pudding form to make sure the taste is just right. And I had spent much time with families who still to this day produce their own Scrapple that really feeds the entire family. Shout out to the Schwang family in Douglasville, PA. And so they, make it for their whole family, and it's not to be, it's not made to be a business. It's made to like that taste of growing up and like carrying it through the traditions. And Barry, the leader of the family, he always says when it's still cooking and he takes the bite, he just knows. He just knows if it has enough seasoning. He just knows if it's the right ratio of the pork with the other ingredients just by the taste. So
yeah, I was wondering if during your research you did go to a live butchering and watched people, like on the farm where people were still putting the iron kettle over the fire and cooking everything down. And you're right. I've been in those situations too, where you have the old timers that learned this from their parents and learned it, multiple generations passed down. And it's that taste. Oh, we need a little more coriander, or we need a little more pepper, or just by that taste when it's still in the pudding form before it sets up and is put into loaf pans. So I'm glad that you got to experience that. There's something special. I know that not everyone finds talking about butchering animals as a very good topic to talk about. However, again, it's butchering, and the ritual that comes along with butchering is such a part of our Pennsylvania Dutch story here in America, as we were agriculture, as we were growing on, raising our own animals, our own meat on farms, and being self-sufficient. Butchering was an event where it brought family together. It's where it brought communities together. Same thing with when it came time in the fall for apple butter making, and you had the iron kettle or the copper kettle put on the fire, and everyone was there to peel the apples and cut the apples and cook the apples down, and it became a social event because you were working together, but that all the work that you were doing was for sustaining the community and your family throughout the winter, throughout the fall, and into the spring till things came back to life again and you could grow. And I've often had conversations with friends of mine, and I'll get your take on this too, that's one aspect of our culture that, of course, now because of the means of grocery stores and, and food being produced outside of the family, it's one thing that I think we really lost as a part of our social makeup, that we don't have families coming together or communities, neighbors coming together and working on something communally that also benefits the community, whether it's a food product or I think a quilting circle where, the ladies would come together and quilt and then make quilts for the community. I really wish we could bring some of those traditions some way or another back. As I think it would benefit society a little bit if we had more of that kind of stuff going on. Maybe not necessarily butchering pigs and making Scrapple, but the concept of people coming together as in an event to help each other out and to create something or do something. In this case, it was, when they were butchering, making Scrapple or husking corn, when the corn crop came in. I think that's something that I wish we could somehow bring back. I don't know.
I agree.
A little bit.
And similarly, canning, right? For your farm and your produce and things like that. And I think that there was a wave where canning was cool again. But I do think that it was really important to me to not only talk about the mass producers and how they came to be and the farmers, but also tell the story of a family that still does this to this day. Sure. I know that Andrew Zimmer, Bizarre Foods, he did an episode where he had featured a family that did something similar, and he made Scrapple with them. And I know there's not necessarily it's not sexy, going to a farm and, starting from the butchering of a whole animal to then make it Scrapple. But I think it's important to remember that's how we used to live and pull that through. I think so many the farm to table and the nose to tail movement helped to shed some light on that. There's so many ways you can utilize an animal and really celebrate that animal by pulling it through. That's why I love that. I love the story, just knowing that people took the lard then to cover the Scrapple to then prolong it and seal it. So I had similar soapbox as you.
Sounds good. My dear friend Carol says, "This is how I love it: ketchup on thin, crispy Scrapple with a piece of apple butter bread on the side." She
Ooh.
brings both the sweet and the savory together. I love it, Carol. I love it.
Carol,
It's like
definitely
the
going to
yin
have
and
to try
yang.
that.
Well,
Love
can you
it.
beat a good piece of apple butter bread? I don't know.
Oh.
Amy, what is there anything else you'd like to share with our viewers as we're running here? And we talked about your book, of course, and I will, for everyone that's watching, I will put a link in the show notes for where you can purchase Amy's book and go out there and get your own copy. I highly recommend it. But Amy, anything else you'd like to share with us?
Yeah. So I am full of fun Scrabble facts. So
Okay.
an additional fun Scrabble fact, another story that I just loved that I uncovered about Scrabble in history. One being when in 1979, when Pope John Paul II came to Philadelphia, one of the many things he had to eat when he was in Philadelphia was Scrabble, and he enjoyed it. So that is a really fun fact right there. Number two.
Oh, but the question is, do we know what he put on it?
I know. If only we knew. Why didn't somebody report on that? I mean, I feel like that was
Right.
a hot topic. And then I can also say that another fun story that I loved is that in 1993, two CBS sportscasters, and I have their names, I don't want to butcher them, but Tim McCarver and Sean McDoulan bantered on air during the baseball game about Scrapple and being unsure, what was in Scrapple as like the talking point as the game was going on. And the owner of Haberset heard it and was disgusted that they were saying the wrong things were in their Scrapple, that he then sent to Vet Stadium 9 pounds of Scrapple. And from there, it became the unintentional marketing campaign for Habersack Scrapple, that even during the games, they would say language like, let's scrapple the Braves, and like use it in a vernacular about, just like as a, verb. And it was like, we're going to really show them with our Scrabble. So I think that there was a lot of fun facts, and there's so many. There was an entire advertising campaign where they used Scrabble to really like show everybody, like show their Philadelphia pride. I mean, and Philly's pride. So I thought that was really fun. And then if you want to get really crazy,
Yes, let's get really crazy.
There has been some weird stuff made with Scrabble.
Okay.
So, number one, Dogfish had made a Scrapple beer.
They did.
Many may know about.
I tasted it. Yes.
And what did you think?
Yeah, it was okay. It was nothing that I could have sat and drank like a whole 6-pack of. That's for sure.
Well, you had to try it.
I applauded them for their creativity. Absolutely. Well, Lancaster Brewing put out a shoe fly pie porter, a couple years ago now. I don't know if they still are making it or not, but it was the same kind of thing. Like, I saw a shoe fly pie beer. I must try this. But yeah, Dogfish Head Scrap. I'm glad you brought that up, actually.
Yeah. And then two, Hidden Stave. Hidden Stave produced a Scrapple Vodka. They will not say, and it's really great apparently for Bloody Marys, they will not say which Scrapple they put in it, but I'm pretty sure it's Rappa because they are in Delaware. So, see, Dogfish Head and Hidden Stave, both Delaware.
Yeah, both Delaware. Yeah.
It's really trying to pull through. And then I can also say that there's been some like really weird things done with Scrapple. So Ivan Ramen, who's very well known in New York City for his ramen, he did make a Scrapple pancake, and it was so popular that, and it was essentially, he put on like kiwi mayo, and it was of the Asian persuasion, but he got a lot of slack for it. People actually called him Satan because of it. And he got so popular from it, he had to discontinue the product from the menu because he got killer lines and he could not keep up. Also, I can say another fun, delicious thing that everyone, if you're ever in the Philadelphia area, Chef Adam, who owns the restaurant Elwood, he does serve very beautiful scrapple cubes. They're like little tiny cubes, very dainty, on antlers, and serves it to you at the table. And it's like this killer presentation. You're like, what are you talking about, Amy? But it's like to sit at a fine dining restaurant, white tablecloth restaurant, and be served scrapple on antlers is a whole different, like, it's like breaking the system, you know? So I really give him credibility. And I can say, prior to him opening Elwood, which is in the Fishtown neighborhood of Philadelphia, he did work at Johnny Brenda's and he did prepare scrapple balls. So he had made the scrapple from scratch, scooped it, and then dropped it into a fryer. So when you bit into the scrapple ball, it was like, bliss. It was like that crunchy exterior, that creamy interior. And you cannot forget that he also served it with pepper jelly, which is straight up, and it won my Pennsylvania Dutch heart. So that was a fabulous special he did offer. So I know some people may be rolling their eyes at me and think it may be sacrilegious to put Scrapple in different forms, but I think it is a fun journey, right? It's a journey.
Oh, right. Yeah.
All about reinventing. So I really enjoyed that.
I think as long as people are using it, I know that the purists are out there, of course, but again, I think it shows just how versatile this food that everybody thinks is just this gray object. But I mean, here you're telling us stories about every one of those I want to try. It's like that Scrapple Vodka for used in a Bloody Mary. That sounds wonderful.
I know.
And look, the next time all of you guys are planning your next party, if you're not putting Scrapple balls on the menu or on the table, what are you doing? Come on.
I know. Like, this is like the best appetizer anybody could ever have. We're telling people, you thought Scrapple fries were cool? Okay, this is better than Scrapple fries. Right. Because the thinner the Scrapple fry, the less creaminess you get inside. Right. And the ratio, that's what's like and I might get some slack for this. You cannot have Scrapple too thin because then you're missing that creamy interior. That's like, it's like the money shot. Like that's the part of it that's the best part. So if you want to send me hate mail, I'm ready for it. amy.strauss@gmail.com.
I love your passion, Amy. This is great. I always thought I was just one of the few weirdos out there that got this passionate about this stuff too. So I'm really glad that I found a sister in arms tonight.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to talk to me about anything Pennsylvania Dutch, including funny cake, how people, I don't know if anybody has ever made funny cake, and just like trying to explain to someone who doesn't know what I'm talking about half the time, what these things are from our culture is always a riot. Like, I mean, I say things too that my husband, who is not Pennsylvania Dutch, like I will say, can you please out-in the light? And he's like, what? You mean turn it off? So yeah.
You can train him. There's time. Don't worry. Yeah. Just keep working at it. Mm-hmm. Well, Amy, thank you so much for coming on the show. I think we're going to have to talk, after this is over, in email, because I think we can get another episode with you talking about funny cakes or something else Pennsylvania Dutch food related down the road. But I know that Scrapple is just this one thing that is so unique for us that I know people either love it, and if they love it, they really love it. And if they hate it, they seem to really hate it. So whichever side of the fence you guys are on, definitely check out Amy's book, Pennsylvania Scrapple, A Delectable History. As I said, I'll have a link in the show notes after this is uploaded to the YouTube channel that you can order your own copy. And Amy is on social media. Her email address is available if you wanted to reach out and ask her any questions. Right, Amy? I'm not, hopefully I'm not stepping on your toes saying that.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
I already named it. Amy.Strauss@gmail.com. You can also reach out to me on any of the social medias. My username is Amy Strauss. So
Yes,
I'm
and
not.
I will give a huge shout out to Amy's Instagram. Although if you follow her Instagram, make sure you're not hungry when you do it, because her photos of the food that she eats are wonderful. Just
I
gonna say that.
I did have a colleague ask me today, "Do you go out to dinner every night?" And I'm like, "I go out to dinner a lot." So
But when you're in the field that you're in, it makes sense.
Mm.
So yeah. Amy, thanks so much for coming on PA Dutch Live, and we will work and talk about getting you on here again in the future at some point. Again, check out Amy's book. Guys, stick around. We got a Pennsylvania Dutch poem and a Pennsylvania Dutch song coming at you before we say goodbye. But we're going to say goodbye to Amy right now. Amy, thanks again for coming on. Thank you for doing the work that you did. Thank you for writing this book. It's really important that you told our story. No one else told this story. So thank you for doing that. And it was a story that needed to be told. So thanks again, Amy.
Thank you so much. Thank you so everybody to tune in, and thank you, Doug, so much. This was a lot of fun.
It
I'll be
was.
back. Maybe I'll have
There we go.
maybe I'll have a backup band, aka my dad's band, to just do
That
a
would be
little music.
awesome. That would be awesome. We'll talk. Mock's good, Amy. Well, people, how do you follow that up? How do you follow that up? Amy was such a great guest. Thanks so much for having, I'm so happy that she came on the show, that she was so excited about the story that she has to tell about Scrapple, and who isn't excited about things that they're passionate about, right? So, before we get out of here, of course, there is the book. That's the cover of it. You can see nice pictures of Scrapple in its many forms there on the cover. And it is available on Amazon. That's the link. It's also available at other smaller independent bookstores if you prefer to support them. Just Google search Amy Strauss in this book. You'll find it, and multiple ways that you can purchase it. Well, as we say let's see who else. We got some people. We got people joining us from Brazil. Thanks, Mauricio, sorry. Thanks for joining us from Brazil. How about that? All right. Well, as we do every week, or every month, excuse me, I always provide one Pennsylvania Dutch poem. And since this month was about Scrapple, I decided we're going to have a poem about food. And there's a lot of poetry in the Pennsylvania Dutch language about food, but it is also, we're slowly getting into autumn, and fall in Pennsylvania Dutch country usually means apple butter season, when families come together and cook and make apple butter. So here is a poem by the poet L.L. Grumbine, who lived from 1858 to 1904. And the title of the poem is Es Lattwarick Koche, or Cooking Apple Butter. And we have the Pennsylvania Dutch down the left-hand side and the English down the right. You can follow along in whichever language you choose. I'm going to read the Pennsylvania Dutch, so you get to hear a little bit of Pennsylvania Dutch tonight. Here we go. Es Lattwarick Koche by L.L. Grumbine. Mit Fässer und Kibbel noch das Cidermehl. Es geht früh an die Arbeit im Marie Kiel. Heit ist der Tag für Lattwarick Koche, der herrlichste Tag in mancher Woche. In der Vorstellung, was man an alles denkt, wie der groß Kupferkessel über dem Feuer hängt. Und der Cider fängt schon längst da kochen. Da ich 30 Jahre hab ich's wieder gerochen. Die junge Leid all der Tisch rumsitze und fleißig helfe, die Äpfel zu schnitze. Die Haasfrau rührt sie in die kochige Brie. Es kann's niemand machen, so wie sie. Na ist die Äpfelsuppe fertig gekocht, uns Rühre und Starre war zum Schluss gebracht. Alles gar, du kannst es nicht besser treffen. Hängt der Kessel ab und schepp's in die Hefe. Die Alte sind mied und sie gehen noch der Ruhe. Es jung Volk gibt sich der Freude zu. Lass uns all mitmachen, ich und du, denn oben sind wir all wieder jung. A nice poem in Pennsylvania Dutch all about making apple butter, Lattwarick, one of my favorite things in Pennsylvania Dutch food ways. Of course, I really like to have it on top of Schmierkäse. Schmierkäse is cottage cheese, if you don't know your Pennsylvania Dutch. And you mix that together. Now that's good eating. Schmierkäse und Lattwarick. So thanks to L.L. Grumbine for that really nice poem. We got people now joining us also from die Schweiz, Switzerland. Great from Andre. And out there on the west, we got Ken joining us from Tucson, Arizona. Thanks for joining us. And one last thing before we say goodbye. Every month, I bring you a Pennsylvania Dutch song. And again, I was thinking I'm going to stick with this food theme. And I searched and searched if I could find a Pennsylvania Dutch song that was about Scrapple. I couldn't find one. So I guess that's something I'm going to have to work on and write one. But there is a song that is often sung at when Pennsylvania Dutch people have Versamlingen or Groundhog Lodge events, when we get together to have an evening where we sing, and a lot of times that happens, this is a song that often is sung at those events called Bunker Hill. And it's kind of a weird song because we're singing about food in the first two stanzas. We're singing about cabbage and celery and lettuce. And then in the second verse, we're singing about pork, sauerkraut, buttered bread, and beer. And then the third verse, we go into weapons. We got shotguns, bayonets, cannons, and pistols. I honestly don't know what the story behind this song. It's one I've sung my whole life just because we always sing it. Where it comes from, I don't know, but the melody will sound familiar. So I'm just going to sing it for you. It's in the key. I have it here in the key of G for those that are string players. But here we go, a little Bunker Hill for you. Weisskraut, Seeskraut, Celery, Hunzelot. Weisskraut, Seeskraut, Celery, Hunzelot. Weisskraut, Seeskraut, Celery, Hunzelot. Bunker Hill, Bunker Hill, Bunker Hill. Seifleisch, Sauerkraut, Butterbrot und Bier. Seifleisch, Sauerkraut, Butterbrot und Bier. Seifleisch, Sauerkraut, Butterbrot und Bier. Bunker Hill, Bunker Hill, Bunker Hill. Schröderflint, Bohnengarnett, Kanonen und Pistol. Schröderflint, Bohnengarnett, Kanonen und Pistol. Schröderflint, Bohnengarnett, Kanonen und Pistol. Bunker Hill, Bunker Hill, Bunker Hill. Well, there you go. How about that song for you tonight? Sang about cabbage, celery, pork, sauerkraut, and guns. That's pretty darn American, I guess. Anyway, my goodness. What can I tell you guys before I leave? Well, one thing we already know when our next episode of PA Dutch Live will be. And I got to check my notes here. I thought I had it, but I don't. It will be on September 16th. It's a Thursday instead of a Wednesday night because my guest wasn't able to do a Wednesday night. So we are doing Thursday, September 16th. And I'm really excited about this episode in September because we are going to have on Heather Zimmerman. Heather Zimmerman is the brand new director of the Kutztown Folk Festival. And she's only been in the job a couple months. And we're going to have her on so that we can talk about what is her vision for the Folk Festival moving forward. What does she see the Folk Festival becoming, staying? We're going to pick her brain, and I can't wait to have that conversation with her. So mark your calendars. September 16th, join us with Heather Zimmerman on Pennsylvania Dutch Live. Guys, it's been a pleasure being with you this evening, as it is every month. Thank you for the continued support. If you like what we're doing here, of course, you can always buy me a coffee. Check out buymeacoffee.com/Doug Maidenford, where you can make a monetary donation. All money that is raised goes towards the upkeep of the channel, upkeep of new electronics, things like that, paying for subscriptions and all these things that we need to do to keep this show going and the YouTube channel going. So if you feel so inclined, you can buy me a coffee. I appreciate anything that anyone gives, of course, and I'm always humbled whenever donations do come in. This is it, guys. We've reached the end of the month. Join us in 1 month on the 16th of September, where I'll be with Heather Zimmerman, and we'll be back with another Pennsylvania Dutch poem, another Pennsylvania Dutch song, and I'll give you all the news that's out there and upcoming events. If you forgot all the things that I announced at the beginning of the show, when this is all over, rewind and check them out because there are tons of great events coming up in Pennsylvania Dutch country, whether it's the Ole Fair, the Dreiblebis Historic Farm, Historic Schaeferstown. There's tons of stuff. The 2 Pennsylvania Dutch classes that are available. Get yourself to one of these events. Be safe out there, though. COVID numbers are going through the roof again, so I want everyone to be safe out there so that we can all join together again in a month. For those of you going back to school, sending kids off to school, I'll be going back to school next week myself. Good luck with the upcoming school year. If you have a kid or grandkids going to school and they pack their lunch, send some Scrapple in their lunchbox. They'll be the hit of the cafeteria when they open that lunchbox and there's some fresh Scrapple. That's my advice to all of you. How's that sound? I like it. I like it a lot. Guys, thanks so much for joining us. Till next month, take care of yourselves. And as we say in Pennsylvania Dutch, Max gut, everybody.
Ich kann deutsche Worte singen, hoff so kannst du. Welle dann mit Anna singen, sing ich und du. Ich bin froh und ich bin herrlich, wie bist dann du? Ich geh recklen auf die Karte, ich hoff so tust du. Oh, wir singen, singen. viel wie ein Hutschli immer fällt, wie viel stand du? Gib dem Doktor gar kein Geld, was gibst dann du? Rumfungiere du ich nicht, hoff nicht durch du. Ich geh zeitlich noch im Bett, hoff so durch du. Oh, wir singen